Hi friends, welcome to the Miss Ink Stamps YouTube channel. This is Lauren Taylor and I'm grateful to have you here. We're going to be using some of the products from the Magic collection from Miss Ink Stamps. I'm going to be using some stamps and stencils from a previous release, but I'm using the Castle Archies die from February's release, which is so cool and perfect for scene building with the rest of the products within the Magic collection. I'm going to start with stenciling my background. So I have an A2 piece of kind of a vanilla cream cardstock, and I'm going to be using my stenciling tools to use the layering Radishes stencils from Miss Ink Stamps. I'm going to start with the tops of my radishes, and I'm going to be using a green colored Distress Oxide. Now I do end up using my foam blender. This particular one's from scrapbook.com with my Mowed Lawn Distress Oxide, but I would recommend using a brush. The stencil has these like really delicate little sharp pieces to create the look of the radishes, and it did take me quite a bit to make sure all of those radish tops were filled and I didn't have any issues with my stencil or like, bending my stencil in any way. So for the next layer, which will be red, I'm going to use Lumberjack Plaid Distress Oxide. I thought going with a smaller domed foam blender would work how I wanted it to work, but I will end up switching it out for a brush in just a moment. So I wanted to create the radishes with a little white tip on the bottom, but then I realized there's nothing to like define the tip of the bottom of the radish, if that makes sense. So I'm going to go ahead and just color them completely with the Lumberjack Plaid. You definitely could bring in maybe like antique linen and do a lot of details, but I think they look perfect just like this. You could even bring in maybe a white gel pen to add those little white bottoms to the radishes, but I'm very happy with how it turned out. It's such an adorable stencil, and I also like that you could switch it up. Maybe you can make them into short little stumpy carrots or anything else that grows in the ground, like a root vegetable. I also liked the green by itself. It would make a really cute like detail to make a full green grass kind of meadow looking background. So I definitely want to try that in the future. So now I'm getting my stamps that I'm using from the Stay Weird stamp set, and I'm using my Misty to help me stamp onto some alcohol marker friendly white cardstock, and I'm using a black ink that is also alcohol marker friendly. I'm using my Misty because I will stamp these images twice just to make sure I have a nice clean crisp image, and then I'll go ahead and get my alcohol markers ready. So I'll go ahead and zoom in so you can see I'm doing my best to show the marker caps, but in case you can't read them, I've added them here on the lower left hand corner. I've been playing around with Olo markers. I have just the portrait collection, so like skin tone colors. And then the rest of my markers are Ohuhu art markers. I prefer the Honolulu B style, so I have a brush and a nib. For the Olo markers, I just have the kind of brush looking end for the colors. So I'm going to go through and I'm starting with coloring in my girl, which is skin color. I added in like try to add in some like rosy cheeks, but I will say I probably will go in later and add a darker pink. Now I'm moving on to coloring in her hair. Now she has like almost white blonde hair, so I'm going to use some warm gray but have a tint of like brownishy blonde color to it, if that makes sense. So I'm starting with this warm gray 01, and that's actually going to be the lightest color. I'm applying quite a bit to the hair. And then I'm going to bring in a yellow gray YG040 and add some shadow to that. I'm going kind of backwards. Normally I start with the darkest color and then bring that color out as I go lighter. And then finally E280, just really trying to darken up under the sides of her face. So anywhere where it would be, the darkest, there's a lot of shadow. And then I'm bringing back my lightest color and just going over and blending those. I'm trying to leave some white because I want it to look like she has some shine to her hair. And it is supposed to be like a very pale white blonde color. I colored her eyes with BG202 and then her cute little radish earrings G470 and R160. Now we're moving into the details of her tie and the blue of her sweater. So for the blue, I'm using PB5, and for the grays, I'm using CG050, CG208, and CG200. So that's her tie and her shirt, and then the blue of her sweater. For the robes and her gray sweater, skirt, and everything else, I'm going to be doing dark grays to create a look of black, but not being black, if that makes sense. And for that, I'm using CG208, CG209. Those are going to be the color combination for my black. And then for my darker gray is CG207 and CG204. So I'm using this, my quote unquote black combination for her shoes and for the inside of her robe. So like, inside her sleeve and on the back side of her robe. But then for the outside of her robe where there would be more light, I'm using those last two colors to create a darker gray, or I guess a lighter black, for the sake of the robe. Because the robes in the movie version of the story are like a nice deep black, but I don't like coloring with black. I don't think you can show as much dimension, so I like to use dark grays instead. So I'm going to finish coloring up this half of the robe. I'm going to color the other half off camera. This is again the same color combination for the other side. Then for her sweater and skirt and socks, I'm going to go a little bit lighter as this is more of a gray color. And I actually filled it in with my lighter color first, the CG204, and then I'm bringing in CG207 to add in the shadow. And then again 4 just to really blend all that together and create a dark gray. Now for the glasses, I'm not going to do a lot of shadowing because they're so tiny. So I'm using R190 to be the glasses frames. And then I will use B050 and R110 to be the lenses of the frames, creating that blue and pink, very iconic glasses for this character. And then I bring back R190 just to add a little bit of tone on tone shadow. But again, you don't need shadow. These images are tiny. For the whites of the shoes, I'm bringing in CG200, and I literally just did that to add shadow to the soles. And then I'm bringing in R160 to color in the red of the laces. And I was originally thinking I was going to create a pretty detail on the shoes, like create a pattern. In the movie version, they look a little bit like they're plaid or checkered in a way. So in my head at the time when I was adding in the details of the laces, that's what I was going to do. But then I realized that's a lot of work, so they're going to be fully red. So I'm just going to color them fully in with R160. I'll give it a second to kind of dry back a little, and then I'll bring in that same color to just add a tone on tone shadow, very similar to how I did the glasses. So I have the coordinating dies for this stamp set. Again, this is the Stay Weird set, and these are the Stay Weird coordinating dies. And I'll go ahead and run that through my die cut machine. Here is my witch with my shoes and glasses and my background. And this is the new Castle Archies dies. I'm going to cut it out of some craft cardstock. I haven't cut apart the windows out of it yet because I haven't needed them. So I don't mind that. You can snip those out. You don't need to leave them in the center of the die. So now let's get to building our scene. I'm going to add all of these craft pieces to my radish background. So I'm going to start with the A2 frame that gets cut out from the Castle Archies dies, and I'm going to go ahead and attach that to the background. So that way I have a starting point of where each of my pieces go in for the Castle Archies because they fit together just like a puzzle. So I started with the outside frame. Now for the floor, I was going to add those in, but I wanted to add some perspective dimension, which is perfect for the perspective floor stencil. I absolutely love this stencil from Missing Stamps. It's not just for the Magic Collection. You can use it for anything. It's so hard to find perspective stencils like this, so this is just a great staple to have in your crafty collection. And I'm using Scorched Timber Distress ink and a blending brush to add in that darker brown to create a look of a stone ground that will be within the castle. So that turned out perfectly, and I'll go ahead and grab my liquid adhesive to glue that in. So that is the bottom part of the castle arches, and you can see there's little slots for where the columns are going to fit perfectly in them. So just like I said, a puzzle piece, we're adding in the floor of our scene, and then we can start adding in the rest. So you're not going to watch me glue everything together. I'm going to kind of jump here, between each of the pieces just so you can see how I put them together. But we're going to start with the large columns. So I will glue those down, and those fit perfectly in the bottom corners of the scene. So we have our left column and our right column. And then I'm going to do the arches part, which will, just the kind of puzzle outline of the arches, and then I will add in the smaller pieces. So getting that glued in place, and then I am gluing in the different pieces of the arches within my scene. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to put in the arch that kind of has that half moon look, but as I put in these smaller columns that are further back in the scene and I add in those arches, I realized that it looked kind of weird having this one like radishes stick out in that area. So I went ahead and pieced that in as well. And I was just going for the radishes to be in the background. They weren't supposed to be, overpowering the scene in any way. So it looks really great, and I'm happy with how it's turning out. So as I'm kind of playing with my different pieces that I want to put on my scene, I'm realizing that I need a little bit more shadow and dimension on my scene. So I'm going to bring back that scorched timber and my blending brush, and I'm just going to add some ink to the top, kind of give it like a vignette look, just adding it around the corners and the top of my arches. And I'm very happy with that. I feel like it kind of darkens the top and it aligns and kind of feels equal to the darkened bottom. It made me more happy, I guess you could say. And I wanted to add a little bit of shine. I love adding shine to my cards, so I grabbed one of the Distress mica sprays, and I went ahead and just pulled the straw out and used that to splatter onto my scene. So while that's drying, I'm going to add foam adhesive to the back of my shoes and my witch. I did actually put them behind my glasses, but I'm going to realize that I didn't want to do that. So I will remove those in a bit. And now it's getting pretty dry. So I'm going to, kind of lay out my scene, figure out where everything's going to go. And then I realize, oh, wait, I need to make sure I have my sentiment ready. I do that a lot. I get my card all lined up and pretty, and then I forget my sentiment, and then I don't know where to put it. And then I have to peel things up, and it makes me sad. So I have this die from in my stash where I use for sentiments, and I thought it would look pretty good with that sanity is overrated sentiment because it was kind of built similarly, but I just didn't like it. It was too big and bulky for the sentiment. So I have it placed there, but I'm putting on my shoes and my witch and her glasses, and I'm going to fussy cut around my sentiment. I like this die, but I just think the sentiment was too small in comparison to the die. So we're just going to kind of bubble cut around it. I'm just going to use my scissors to fully trim around the sentiment, and it looks so much better. And I'm going to put it right back where I had it laid out when I was adhering my shoes and my witch. So I'll just add foam adhesive to the back of that and place it onto the card front. And that will finish up the card. I will put this on a card base, but I think it's looking pretty cute and pretty fun. I love all of the different products within Miss Ink Stamp's Magic Collection. Everything just coordinates so well together. All of the characters are sized the same, so you can mix and match different characters from this fandom collection from different stamp sets to build a scene without any issues. It's great. You should check it out. I will have all the supplies I use linked down below in the description of the video. Make sure you check out the rest of the Magic Collection as well as the other amazing products from Miss Ink Stamps. Thank you so much for joining me today, and make sure you hit like and subscribe if you're new here, and have a wonderful and magical day. Bye!